So Seth called me sort of early on and said, this is how I want to make the show. I want every scene to be a oner, essentially. Sometimes multiple scenes as a oner. And I immediately started like spinning out, and I was like, well, how's that going to work? Like, I mean, obviously you can do oners and they're interesting and sometimes beautiful, but are they funny? You know, because like comedy is so much about pacing and timing. And so like, how are we going to make sure that we get the timing and the pacing right if we can't edit? So we kind of like solved that by a couple different ways. One, I was on set every day for 60 days. And I was essentially live editing, we called it. So what does that mean? So it means that we would watch a take, usually 3 or 4 takes. And then I would walk up to Seth and Evan and huddle, and I would have my script and I would say, okay, this joke, it's a funny joke, but it's not an A joke. I think we should cut it. And I would like, my heart would be pounding, and I'd be like telling like 2 of the funniest people in Hollywood that like their jokes weren't funny enough, and they'd be like, yeah, you're right. You know, and so we would cut it, and then it would be like, okay, this line here, like, do we need it? Is it giving us anything? No, let's cut it. And you know, what about this move here? I mean, we're getting a lot of shoe leather walking to the door. Can we add a line here as we're walking to the door? And we're like, yep, good idea. And so it was just like this incredible collaboration. And by usually like take 10 or 12, we had like the scene in its like structure, like it was like down to the length that we wanted it, and it felt good. And then by take like 15 or 16, the actors had just like completely dialed it in, and you were just getting something that you'd want to watch on TV. All that said, we knew that we'd still want to be like picking and choosing from takes. So basically, we very carefully designed each scene so that there were these moments where we could cross performances, usually with pans, sometimes with more elaborate digital trickery. So in that little clip you saw, there were 7 cuts, including a patch, which we shot 2 months later, because it was a big piece of dialogue that we were like, this is just boring. This is the episode 1, you know, we don't need this. Like, it was like a 2-minute, the scene was 2 minutes longer. And we were like, we got to get around that somehow. And we were like, the only way we can do it is to go in and do a patch. Bryan Cranston wasn't available. So that bit where the camera's sort of moving around and Seth Rogen is saying like, ever since I, you know, was a kid and toured the studio, I wanted to come here. I was standing across from him reading the lines, and they sort of basically like stitched me out and stitched Bryan Cranston in on each pan. So we wound up having like a lot of tools in our arsenal to actually do some editing, even though they were all oners.